We're live. 3, 2, 1.
I'm Maximus Decimus Meridius. I've always wanted to do that. Take 2. Okay, never mind. Yeah, that's good. It's good. Come back. I just wanted to throw a curveball. Brendan Cunningham, the real estate doctor at EXP, with me, Matt Paul. Of course, he does it all.
Yes.
Oh, but I've always wanted to do that. Maximus Decimus Meridius.
That was awesome. You nailed it. We're leaving it in.
We're leaving. Okay, so we're back. Real talk for real folks from 2 realtors. Real stories, not missing words. Lots of things happen in a real estate transaction. It's a very dynamic situation that occurs, and it's the dynamism is what makes it fun for me.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
However, there's a lot of what I call exploding cigars in the real estate transaction, and one of the biggest exploding cigars has to do with one of the dates that's on the contract. All right, let's do now I'm going to do mind reading. What date would that be?
I would think it'd be the closing date.
Oh my God, the closing date. The closing date.
Not commitment date? No.
The closing date. This is something that we explain this to people, I would say an average of 6 times.
Yeah.
It's probably more than that.
Yep.
Especially in Western New York. Now, we're in the Western New York market, Buffalo market specifically, hottest market in America. We'll talk a little bit more about that as time goes by. But here, the closing process is a little different than other places.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm going to fix my chair here.
You got the wobbly one.
I got the wobbly one. Thank you. This is how it works. I get the old guy to fall.
Yeah, just want to make sure you're on your toes.
Okay.
Couldn't do it without you, Brendan.
Yeah, get out of here. So yeah, the closing date.
Well, it's a target date on the contract, right?
Doesn't say target date.
No, it doesn't. No, it says written in stone.
It says written in stone. So let's say that your buyer has a closing date on the contract of April 15th. They're expecting to close on April 15th.
Yeah.
Okay? Yep. I mean, I read it. You read it. It says April 15th. That's my closing date.
Yep.
But in reality, it's not. As you called it a target date.
Yep. Sometimes
you'll say pregnancy date.
Yep.
And you may not close on the 15th.
Oh, because like you mentioned, all the dynamics and the moving parts that change.
They may not have done. They may not have addressed all the work that needs to get done on the title work.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that
the surveys too.
The surveys,
yep.
And all these things. So yeah, we give them the target date, and it's not what they call a time is of the essence contract.
Yep.
A lot of places have time is of the essence contract.
Yes.
Briefly explain what that means.
Yeah. So time is of the essence is when you have a specific timeline that you have to stay within, and we can issue time is of the essence on a deal if you know you're going a month or however long past the targeted closing date. And I have done that in the past, but not for several years, to be honest.
Yeah, it doesn't come up very often, and most people just sort of deal with it. But how do you deal with it? That's the question.
Yeah.
When do I call the freaking movers?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the question.
Yep.
And how do you answer? I'll tell you what I do.
Yeah. So basically, when clients, sometimes you have to repeat yourself and let them know that we still don't have the set closing date in stone. A hard date. So when it comes to movers, utilities, things like that, homeowners insurance, you wait until you hear from your attorney, or you speak directly to the attorney that is the one that is going to schedule that date. Right. Because we don't have that control. We can facilitate, if somebody's not producing the title work in time, if we have to call around and make sure that the survey was done, but we don't have the ability.
We can push.
But yeah,
that's about all we can do.
Completely out of control.
Can't deliver
on
that. And I always tell people, listen, if you ask me when you're closing, if I tell you, do not believe me. I might have the right answer, but it only be might have.
Yeah.
The only person who has the definitive answer is your attorney. End of story.
And that's in New York State, right? Because
it's not a legal requirement, but if you don't have an attorney in New York State, you're doing a real estate transaction, you should have your head examined.
Yeah.
And attorneys don't like me saying that, but really, if I work with somebody and they say, I'm going to do this myself, even if they're attorneys, I don't think I'm taking the client.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Unless they're a real estate attorney.
Real estate attorneys and they're local.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't think so, man. I think you need to have an agent that's going to steer you through this. But the closing thing is always a little dicey.
Yeah.
And part of that has to do with all the little steps that may not have occurred.
Yep.
Like the search and the survey. It's usually a search and survey thing at the very end.
Yes.
Usually.
Yep.
But
Yep.
those are the things that the attorneys do. So, okay, you still haven't answered my question. When do I call the mover?
Yeah.
Well, maybe they're on standby.
Yeah. So you give them a call and let them know, hey, it should be closing within this week or that week, but nothing's set in stone.
Yeah.
Right.
And here's the thing that's something to remember. This is your takeaway on all this. Because as confusing as this, I don't know about you. I've never made anyone homeless.
Nope. No.
I've always closed on the properties.
Yes.
And everyone seems to live happily ever after. But it's very stressful at that one juncture.
It sure is.
How do I do this?
Yep.
And I don't know if you've had the call, but I know I've had the call where you get the call and the buyer's on the phone. They said, listen, I got the movers going over there at 11 o'clock tomorrow. I'm supposed to close but I don't have my date.
Yeah.
Well, the movers might not be there because they're going to be moving in your house.
Or I've had it where I've had a buyer try to set up movers before they actually go and sign. It's you can't do it the morning of if you're signing at 1 or 2 in the afternoon.
No.
Schedule it for the next day or later that evening.
We'll get you through it, but understand it gets a little strange at the end.
That sure does. Yep. And again, it's all those moving parts, and a lot of them we don't have the control.
And I used to boast and say I've had literally $1 billion worth of transactions come across my desk in my career. That's true. But I've never made anyone homeless, but I've seen a lot of people get gray hair before they're...
Yes. Close to heart attack.
And maybe a few F-bombs in there.
Yeah.
I said, remember, we talked about this. And I think the pregnancy date works for me because pregnancy's complicated.
Yeah. And when do those, when do you ever deliver on the date that was originally set the first time that you went to the doctor,
people, and with women especially, if you get it, I said, you have children? I said, let me ask you this. How many do you have? 3. What, any of them born on the due date? They said, well, no.
No.
That's it.
Yeah.
I said, but they were close. Oh, yeah. One was a couple of days early. One was a couple of days late.
Yep.
Okay. The kids are, how are the kids? They're fine. You can be fine.
And that, it can happen too with that being said, that you can close a couple days earlier than the targeted date on the contract as well.
You can.
Right?
This is why you want to have your turn. And what we have a certain luxury on here is in most cases, the sellers don't even have to show up at the closings here.
Yep.
And now I'm even seeing where the buyers aren't even showing up.
Yeah.
The buyers didn't have to show up. They signed all their paperwork in advance and they went off to their next port of call in Charlotte.
Okay.
And I said, wow, that's kind of cool. And then something else was interesting. Now they're delivering the search and surveys at the closing.
Wow.
Sometimes. Because we had Troy come in when he closed on his property.
Okay.
He had to understand. I said, wow.
Wow, that's great.
Usually takes about 6 months to get that.
I was just going to say, it usually comes with their title.
So there's things to be careful. And the moving thing is always problematical, but it doesn't have to be disastrous. In fact, it never has to be disastrous.
Agreed.
We're going to close. You're going to live happily ever after, but we'll tell you up front. Yeah, it's a little bit of a nuisance.
Yeah, it can be stressful, just as moving is in general for most people.
Yeah, and I don't know who I was talking to, but I said, on my last purchase, I said, and I want to be taken out of this house feet first because I just hate moving. Moving is the hardest part about the transaction. Is the moving.
Yep.
And that's why people say, I don't want to do that. I'll just stay here. Well, you can do that.
Yes. Okay. Yep. I moved 5 times in 6 years with 3 kids a few years ago. And so I actually feel I can have compassion for, those that I'm working with that are stressing because of the kids or trying to get into a school district or whatever the case may be. I know, you'd be lying if you said it was not stressful.
Yeah. And we recognize that. And we want you to know that we recognize that because at the end of the day, to use that hackneyed phrase, we're dealing with people's lives.
Yes.
And you're not just a sale. You're not just a commodity.
No.
And you may be to other agents, but not to us. No. I mean, certainly not to me.
Absolutely not.
I want to make sure that I do take as good care of you as I can.
And be compassionate along the way.
It's a very emotional time.
Yeah.
I used to love the expression on the Lower East Side of New York City where, you'd have an argument with somebody and they'd say, hey, now you're hitting me where I live.
Yeah.
We do that every day.
Yeah.
We hit you where you live.
Yeah, literally.
The seller feels like they got gypped, and you should have paid more. You feel like if you're the buyer, you got gypped because you shouldn't have paid as much. Everyone feels, that somebody else got taken advantage of, and that's not really what happens.
No.
What happens is it's a fair market economy. You pay the freight if you want the house.
Yes.
And
Yep.
and that's what it is.
And there is a fair, happy medium for everyone
Of
involved,
course
right?
there is.
There is always a number that or a term that fits for everyone, and that's our goal, is to try to get to that point where it's everybody feels like they won.
And sometimes, will I get more money if I sell it next year? Probably.
Yeah.
But you want to sell it now.
Yeah.
Why? Well, because I need to do that. Well, then that doesn't
Yeah,
exist.
it doesn't
It's not
matter.
relevant.
Yep,
It's
yep.
not relevant.
But if we had a crystal ball, then we'd
Yeah,
be
great on the
we'd be
crystal ball.
billionaires.
Yeah,
First of
yeah,
all,
yeah.
second of all, then we would know what next year looks like. And I get asked that almost every fall. What's the what are the analytics for next year? What does it look like next year? And the reality is just like what's going on with the tariffs. Who would have ever
And we
thought
don't talk
this?
about the tariffs.
Right?
Yeah.
You can't prepare for what goes on in this world. So if you have a need, you have a desired reason as to why, right? You have a great job offer, or you just want to get out of where you're living, then you make that move when the time is right for you.
When the time is right for you, and
Yep.
when is the time? Today
Today.
or 20 years ago.
Correct. Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
And you want to wait, just understand you will pay more.
Yes. Yep.
You will pay more. Either the rate will be higher or the price will be higher, or both.
Yep.
End of story. I don't want to sound heartless.
No,
That's what it
that's
is.
the way that's been going.
And let's talk about that, because you put the T word out there.
Sorry.
Oh my God. I
Yep.
think in the long run, it's going to be a great thing.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
And in the short run, you're going to see, because of the uncertainty in the market, you're going to see stocks drop, but you're going to see prices go this way
Yep.
on real estate.
Yep.
Why? Because one of the things they're also talking about is, well, with tariffs, you almost always have inflation that follows.
Mm-hmm.
Inflation, always prices go up.
Yep.
With real estate.
Yep.
Always.
Yep. I also read
And
that
you had that before the tariffs.
Yes, yeah, but I did read that usually during like high tariffs and the interest rates will tend to go down. And they were talking more about a global recession in this article I was reading. However, but there already has been more reductions in interest rates over the last, since the election than we had anticipated.
Yes, we've had more reductions than we've had in the last 4 years. I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we're at 6.63 or something is what I saw.
So let's think about that. If the interest rates come down, what are we? And we're expecting the interest rates to come down a little bit during this readjusting period.
Yep.
Okay. And they already have. When that happens, what do people do? They flood into the market. Yep. So you have more buyer demand for not enough houses. Yeah, and that drives prices up more.
Yep.
No matter what we do, no matter how they figure this thing out, there's no other way other than going like this.
Yep.
So.
And I've been reading too, because we border Canada, and we have Toronto is only an hour and a half from here, and I've been reading down in the ski country of Ellicottville. There's been a handful of Canadians that have put their vacation properties up on the market, and then as well as other areas that are desirable tourist areas within our region. So with that being said, though, there's still so many buyers that we have in our market that this is only going to help. I don't think it's going to hurt us.
Yeah. I'm already getting on the blower and saying to people, listen, if you're looking to buy, the rates are going to be coming down for a little bit. You may have a slight window to get in.
Yep.
But either way, you're going to be paying more 6 months from now.
Correct.
How you do it.
Absolutely.
So this might be a window of opportunity if such a thing actually does exist.
And if you're ready to go.
And you got to be ready to go.
Yep.
Okay. So how do you get ready to go? You get your ducks in a row. You get yourself pre-approved. You sit down with an agent.
Talk to an agent first. They'll point you in every direction, that you need to go step by step.
You talk to the agent and say, okay, this is what you need to do. You get pre-approved.
Yep.
If you get pre-approved and you go to the agent, they'll say, oh, good. That's one less thing you have to do.
Exactly.
But either way,
yes,
it's step 1 or 2.
What'd you call it? Your boarding pass?
It's your boarding pass. You ain't getting on that plane without it.
Can't do anything without it. I was talking to a client this morning, and I said,
"Good phrase. You can use it."
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to take that up. Yep. I won't claim on it though.
No, you can give me credit. It's true. It's your boarding pass.
Yep.
And I laugh. I got TSA. I got all that.
And the pre-check and all that. Yeah. Yeah, you can get into the terminal, but you're not going on the plane. Yep. Yeah, a client this morning was asking me about a property that someone on our team had multiples today. Mm-hmm. And he said, I want to go take a look at it. And unfortunately, the timing didn't work out. The deadline was an hour after I talked to him. But I just reminded him, I said, do you have your pre-approval all set yet? Because he's working on his taxes. I just sold his house, and he's like, oh, that I'm still working on it.
Well,
just give me another time. Well, that's it. I said, I can't, at this point, there's nothing I can do to submit an offer until that boarding pass is in your hand. or in my file.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
So,
sometimes you have to squeeze people,
yep. Or keep
smack 'em
reminding
around a little bit.
them.
You, look,
Yep.
you got to
Yep.
do this.
Yep.
Listen, I don't want to be a hard ass about this thing, but this is how it works.
Well, and it's our job to have people, our buyers, prepared.
Well,
and
they're
if you
not going
don't
to tell
have
you
it,
what you want to hear. Well, they
yeah.
tell you what you need to know. You need
Yep.
to know this.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. It's a necessity. Can't do anything without it.
There's no shortcuts on this.
No.
You know, there's
No.
you can have a streamlined and more successful transaction if you have the right players working with you.
Yep.
But they're not taking a shortcut.
No.
They're
No.
taking the right road and anticipating what issues could develop.
Yes.
That's the difference.
And yeah, and in this profession, there's rules, there's laws, and there's a procedure, and you have to follow it. You know,
Yeah,
you can't get around that.
I don't know if you have this objection, but I have this where agents will say, "And don't worry, I'm going to make this so easy for you. You'll it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a false narrative. Because
Yes.
here's the deal: there's a lot of complicated things they're going to go through. I'm going to try and minimize your discomfort.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
but anyone that goes to the doctor, all I can do is minimize your discomfort.
Well, and all your years of selling real estate, have you ever had two transactions that are the same?
Never.
There you go.
Never.
So how can you ever anticipate what bumps you're going to come across along the way when
they're all different.
when you've been doing it for that long?
There's commonality. Like
oh, for sure.
You have a VA transaction.
Yep.
They tend to have a lot of similarity.
Yep.
You have an FHA transaction.
Yep.
They tend to have a lot
condos, townhouses. Yep. Yep.
But so there's commonality, but within the scope of each one of them, it's like, wow, that was weird.
Yeah, holy cow! I didn't see. Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yep. And we talk about those things, as on the side, like
you would think after a long time, but you'd seen them.
Yeah. Nope. Yeah.
I mean, I had one last year with the clue report. The buyer was trying to get insurance on the property, but because the seller had put in a claim for soffits and gutters because of the storm.
Okay. Yep.
Everything was legit. Oh my God, they wanted signed affidavits. They wanted proof of that the work was done. Photographs wouldn't suffice.
Wow.
Signed affidavits, and they showed canceled checks, and it's still this. No, we want a signed affidavit.
And this was a claim on the seller's insurance, not even. Wow.
That had nothing to do with the buyer.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
I mean, I know about the clue reports, and that can be a problem sometimes.
Yep.
But yeah, so try not to put too many insurance claims on your property.
Yeah.
If you go to sell, you may have an issue.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So that's a thing now.
Yeah.
So the tariffs are going to be a factor. You're going to see prices continue to go up. Interest rates may be coming down.
Yep.
And they have been coming down.
Yep. Yeah.
But get in the game if you're going to get in.
Well, with the rate drops,
don't call the movers right away.
Yeah, no, please don't. With the rate drops, I had a client that was just from a 25% drop when it went from 7 to 6.75. He was able to borrow another $30,000.
Huge.
So he was literally almost priced out of the market at 7%, and then was able to get his dream home when they dropped just 1/4%.
A little bit, just a little bit.
Keep your eye on it.
And if you are in a position where you can negotiate any kind of concessions, you have to talk to your agent on this, because sometimes you're not in a position to do it.
Yes. And there's limitations.
And all this, but if you can, and you can get the seller to absorb some of the cost and buy down your interest rate, you are the golden child, and you do that.
Sure are.
And more people are doing it now than you would actually think.
Yeah.
Because it takes a smart agent to be able to figure that one out.
Yes, and you really do pay a lot less over time if you just paid on that rate. Yeah,
massive amount.
Tens of thousands.
Oh yeah, just a half a point. Oh wow.
Yep.
Crazy. But yeah, so that's all I have to say for today.
Yeah, no, I think it was great. No, thank you for tuning in. Please like, follow, subscribe, like you have been doing, and
give us a call if you want to if you want to buy a house, you want to sell a house. If you want to join our team, we have a few openings for skilled people that want to be our partners.
Yes,
we're not looking to bring people on as just worker bees. They're going to be our partners.
Yes,
okay?
Great point.
And so, Matt, Paul, if they want to call you?
Yes, so the best way to reach me is my cell phone, 716-908-5033, or you can Google Matthew J. Paul Realtor.
Beautiful.
How about you, Brendan?
Brendan Cunningham, 716-818-2526. Now, you don't have to sing it, but it sounds better. 818-2526.
Just like a commercial, Brendan.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That was great.